being surrounded by people, it really helps. First of all, overcome this imposter syndrome. By the way, if you're listening and if you've been to a product weekend and you've had any of these things, feel free to reach out. I'm always very happy to hear these stories.
Once you start working, all you need to know is
you just go back to
plus minus and Excel, and still people struggle with that.
And feeling lonely as a PM, individual contributor, this feeling is aggravated if you're a leader. While you don't have all the answers, you need to project confidence to your teams, at the same time lead them and motivate them. And you also need to project confidence to your stakeholders and say, we got this, we know where we're going.
Welcome to the Productized podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of the most innovative entrepreneurs and leaders in product management and design. Today, I'm thrilled to have João Moita, an aerospace engineer turned product management leader and founder of Product Weekend. João, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Thanks for the invite, Andre. Always nice to be chatting.
So where are you, man?
Right now, I'm in London. That's why we started a little bit later than planned. But yeah, I'm here for the very first product weekend in the UK, which is happening later today. So quite excited. So now you know when the recording date was. But yeah, it's exciting times for product weekend for sure.
Exactly. London and the UK it's probably the biggest product management market in Europe at this moment. Yeah. I mean, I think it has always been. How many people are you going to have today?
Around 30, counting also with the speakers. So it's going to be an interesting mix of old faces and new ones. We have a couple of people traveling that participated in previous events, and also 2 speakers that participated in the retreat last year. So quite excited to see these familiar faces. And it's going to be a fun one.
All right. So look, I think we'll have time to go through Product Weekend and what you're doing with Product Weekend and all that. So let's just dive a little bit into who is João and why you're here today. And we were having this conversation the other day, right, about your early influences and how you ended up going into engineering school and eventually, product management. So let's start from there. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your early years and what influenced your academic pursuits.
So let's go all the way back then. and yeah, I mean, in since an early age, I was very curious about things. Even as a kid, I always liked Legos and playing with things related to space and cars and stuff. So one of my main influences, I would say, was YouTube. It was super powerful for me. I was following a lot of YouTubers doing content around technology, science, and those kind of things were really exciting for me.
Really?
So I'd say those were
how old were you when you started following these YouTubers?
Maybe like 13, 12, 13, probably around that. Then, I mean, it evolved now, then as I was getting to university, in the first years of university, I started getting more involved and more interested in things related to business and management. So also consumed a lot of content, a lot of TED Talks as well. So yeah, I'd say YouTube was always a very relevant thing.
Man, there's so much trash and shit in YouTube and all these platforms.
For sure.
How do how can you go and discriminate signal from noise? All that noise, right?
Yeah.
That, needless to say what it is, which is basically 90% of content out there. And then you have this 10% of amazing signal, which is people doing amazing stuff that obviously also go into YouTube and all these platforms. But, the algorithm especially if you are a kid, right? You don't,
Mm-hmm.
you
Not
don't know how to
intentional.
beat it.
Yeah,
So how did you do that? How did you end up going to this premium high quality content
yeah.
and
I mean,
discriminate from all this other stuff that is taking
yeah,
kids time, right?
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
video games and stuff that is probably even much more much
Yeah.
worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that I didn't consume trash content as well.
Hmm.
It's part of the thing, I'd say, especially when you're a kid and there's
Right, it's
many
part
things.
of growing.
But I think, first of all, I think algorithms are quite good for the good and for the bad. So the more
Mm.
you look into something, if you start researching about something and you start seeing more and more things, you'll get more and more depth and find
Right,
new
they are
things.
like a self-fulfilling prophecy in many ways, right?
Yeah.
They give you what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'd say it's basically being intentional about it. Like I was actively researching some things about like science and those things, and then it just kept appearing. There was some really cool YouTubers. I think they're still around, like Vsauce, for example, and
Hmm.
Veritasium. They were really cool. So recommendations for younger folks to learn about math and science and these kind of things.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, then just kept appearing more things. Yeah, and then another thing that was also a big influence besides the online stuff was sports. I always did sports and
Hmm.
also music. So being in a team, either sports or music, was also I think that influenced the way as that I work in a team, especially, and I interact with others. And
What
yeah,
kind of sports were you doing back then?
mostly basketball.
Hmm.
But yeah, always played other things with friends as well, but more uh, seriously was just basketball back then. Yeah.
All right, and you said music. Who led you to music?
Yeah, my family. It's yeah. My father is a music teacher. Also, my sister is a professional musician. So
Hmm.
I always had a big influence of classical music,
Hmm.
which made me not like it as much. I think, like
Hmm.
especially when you're a kid, you're like kind of automatically against the things that you're told to do. So
Hmm.
I was being told, yeah, you should follow music. And I was like, no, I want to do something else. Not necessarily because I didn't like music, but just because I wanted to go in a contradictory direction, maybe. But yeah, I ended up studying for a few years. I
But
mean,
music gives you discipline.
yeah,
Music
yeah.
gives
I would
you.
say two main things. One of them would be discipline for sure. And especially when you're like you have a lot of things. You still need to study and do sports and do music. You have to be disciplined and manage your time more effectively.
Mhm.
And the other thing is this sensibility, I would say, like being able to understand different types of like just the sound, like the tonalities, understanding these differences, and then working as a group to play something. I think that was something very powerful, that you need to understand what other people are doing, like breathe with them, and like being in a flow in a group. I think those are two very powerful things that
Because
music can give
you
you,
were
even if
playing
you're
in
not
like
pro.
in a group.
Yeah, yeah, like a guitar, classical guitar orchestra, like
Oh, okay.
8 to 12 guitars playing.
Together. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And you did that until you were an
Like
adult or
16, until I
16?
was old enough to say no, I don't want it anymore.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Basically.
Gotcha. You could rebel against your parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Still, you achieved remarkable success during your school years, especially in math and science. And I was going through, I didn't know this, right? But I was going through your LinkedIn profile and it states that you had a global average of 19 out of 20 in your high school years, which is a very hard thing to do if you are studying in Portuguese school system. So, what strategies did you employ to excel academically, and what advice would you give students and parents today? And I know that if you are a good student, it's like, oh, just
This happened.
I was just studying, things just happen. But you know, 99% of students are not like that. So,
Hmm.
obviously there's something. It's just the statistics, right? If you look at the statistics, this is, you are the one top percent. So what's the secret formula here, if there's any?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of it that's just like tendency to work well with it. Like, I mean, I'm not good at some things. Like, people are naturally inclined for different things, and math and science, especially math, was something that came more or less naturally to me. But obviously, also to have a 19 out of 20 grade, you can't only be good at math. You also need to deliver on the others.
Hmm.
But I would say three main things. So besides that natural inclination, I would say having more things to do helped me have a better focus and discipline when it came to studying. Like, okay, I have basketball, I have guitar classes and
Right.
concerts
which
and so on. So I
which
need
is
to,
which is a rather counterintuitive
yeah.
thing, because most parents, what they say, the first thing they say when they have, bad
Hmm.
score from their kids, like, oh, you have to quit basketball, or you have to quit
To
swimming,
focus
or you
on
have
the
to
studies.
quit
Yeah,
classes
I
of
think
this or
that's
that, or the
bullshit, to be
clubs,
honest. Yeah.
because you're not paying too much attention, or whatever it is. You have to focus on F school.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you were saying
Yeah.
the opposite, which is
Yeah.
I had lots of things to do.
Hmm.
So I had lots of things you know
Yeah.
to focus on, and still you achieved. um
I'd say, I mean, I
so
think kids need to be busy. Like, it's not like the mind doesn't stop working, and if you're not doing something, you'll be doing something else maybe that you shouldn't do. So, and also you're not going to be studying like 6 hours a day every day throughout your school years. That's just not
no,
reasonable.
most kids nowadays, they struggle to study half an hour,
Yeah, yeah.
because they
But
don't
like,
have the attention
but
span.
exactly, like, so studying half an hour a day, I think it's good if you study every
Yeah,
day
yeah,
that
I
half
mean,
an hour.
let me rephrase this. Most kids nowadays, they struggle to study 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah. There's too much.
No, I'm not kidding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm
There's too much
I'm just
distraction.
saying,
Also,
out of
like
evidence, right?
TikTok
They
and
struggle to
this
focus
new.
attention,
Hmm.
um, because there's so much attention deficit, right?
Yeah.
That they struggle to focus for 1 minute on whatever studying. And I know I'm a professor of kids age 16, 17. I'm
Hmm.
also a parent of a kid 16, 15,
Yeah.
and other ages. But to my point, the thing is, kids struggle a lot,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
struggle a lot to sit in a chair, take a pen and a piece of paper and just do some
Hmm.
exercises. They
And
do.
I think,
Doesn't come naturally. That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
And I think having too much time aggravates the problem, because it's like, okay, I have like 6 hours to study. So it's always like, I can study a bit later or I can study tomorrow. And like, if you have
Right.
other compromises and other things to do, you'll have less time. So the time you have, you better make a better use of it. I mean, I'm
And
not sure if it works for everyone, but at least for me, I can say that it was a valuable thing to be busy and to have other things going on.
but you
Um,
were obviously very self motivated. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, and that
in a
leads me
sense that
to actually the second point I was going to make, which
right,
is curiosity. And like, I was very, as I was saying, like with YouTube and these things, I was very curious. And not only YouTube, like Discovery Channel was also a thing back then. But learning and understanding like the bigger picture of how things apply, and like math, many people that are studying math, especially in high school, they're like, why do I need to know equations? I'm never going to do it, to use it in my life. And I could see beyond that, and I could see like, okay, it applies to these things, and it explains how the planets move and how
right,
train moves,
which
whatever.
which they were probably right, right? Because as a product, I mean, what was the last time you did a second order derivative, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever, advanced
Mhm.
math, right? I think there's
Mhm.
this meme which has
Yeah,
been around for some years, which is the amount of math you learn in school, and then once you start working, all you need to
yeah.
know is,
You just go back to spreadsheet.
plus minus and Excel.
Yeah, for sure.
And still,
Yeah.
people struggle with that.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was like the curiosity allowed me to go into these things, and
So
the-
it allowed you to rationalize why the fuck I have to study second order equations or whatever it
yeah.
is, polynomials. I
Mhm.
think that's what they call them.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. And then there's another thing. So I'd say, yeah, being busy and having other things besides school, curiosity and developing that by exposing yourself to different things and just trying to learn more. And then
Hmm.
another one I would say is respect for the profession of teachers, because both my
Hmm.
parents were teachers. And I mean, I'm not saying that I was the most well behaved kid, was not also not the most like with the worst behaviors,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I when I was in the class I was like making the most out of it, trying to learn as much as possible from the moment that I have with the teacher, and I
Yeah,
think that's
he
something
had
that,
empathy with the
mhm.
teacher.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, that's important for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, because sometimes people they're actually doing their best. I mean, teachers they're actually
Mhm.
trying to do their best.
Yeah,
Um,
not all teachers though,
Not all
but
teachers.
a lot of
Totally agree with you. But absolutely. All right. So you ended up moving to, university. You pursued the aerospace engineer.
Mhm.
Um, how did your education shape your career path? Because I ended up saying, I don't want to go and work for Lockheed Martin or SpaceX or NASA, whatever it is. I want to be a product manager. So what happened here?
Yeah. So first of all, I think I went to aerospace engineering, mostly because it was a degree with good reputation and it was broad. I mean, it's very specific, right? But it encompasses different things. It has like a component of
Yeah.
computer and IT. It also has a part of electronics, mechanics, and yeah, I had the idea that I wanted to go to engineering, and basically this was a degree that was combining different things. And since it had some reputation, it would still leave some doors open. So that's, as a rule of thumb, I would say when you're not sure what to choose, you should go with the option that keeps the most doors open or that opens the
I
most
would
doors.
argue that we could probably say that for most engineering courses, right? You could say
Yeah,
that for
yeah,
mechanical engineering. You could say that for even electronical engineering, computer science engineering. In many ways, maybe not because it's more just the computer science part, and you're not learning so much the mechanical stuff and so
exactly.
on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the main reasons that this degree had a bit of different things. And then when I got there, I soon realized that I didn't, when I really understood what engineering was about, I understood that I didn't see myself as an engineer in the future, but I still had the understanding that with this degree, if I complete the degree, I have many doors open and I can figure it out later on, eventually work as an engineer for some years. But I developed more of a passion and an interest on management and working with people. So yeah, I always wanted to work with technology, but not as an engineer, and still work with people and do little bit of management things and motivating teams and these kind of things.
Hmm.
Um,
Because you enrolled in Best.
Yeah, students organization that's spread across like 90 plus cities around Europe, and yeah, I was very involved
So
in
it
that.
stands
So
for
organizing
what does it stand for?
Board of European Students of Technology, and yeah, it organizes events and projects and activities for engineering and technology students all around Europe. Think summer courses, engineering competitions, these kind of things. So yeah, I was very much involved in that. Organized dozens, if not 100 plus events around Europe, and then I was also part of the international management team, which was a super interesting experience that I managed to travel around Europe and manage teams spread across Europe, international teams with different people from different cultures and so on.
What were you managing this people for? What were you guys doing there?
So there's like 10 departments. I was managing one of them, which was
Hmm.
about educational involvement. So it was projects related to developing, like improving university education, higher education. So it was like having events to collect input from students, then compiling these events in a way, discussing it in like having it through surveys or in-person events where we're discussing these topics, and then coming up with recommendations for higher education. And we're publishing some scientific papers and white papers
Like
as well.
aerospace engineering was not enough for you to take as a challenge. Let's
Yeah.
just go the next level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you ended up going to technical, right?
Yeah.
Which has the highest concentration of incels per square meter in probably the entire universe. And what led you to go to, to best? Was it like a
Mhm.
little bit better than where?
My thing, I wanted, like, by the end of the first year, I realized that I didn't want to be an engineer, so I wanted to explore other things. And I realized that there were a bunch of students associations, many of them with different focuses. And yeah, and I decided, okay, this year I'm going to test and see and try new things and see what I like and what I can do. And that year I joined Best. I also applied to another one, like a junior enterprise. I also helped found a football championship for the aerospace degree.
Mhm.
Actually, a super fun project that I'm very proud of, Aeroliga.
So you
And
created the football league.
yeah, essentially. I mean, I didn't create it. It was the second year that we were started, but we were
Okay,
like
you managed it.
professionalizing and making it nicer. We had like
Hmm.
sponsors, media coverage, a lot of fun things.
Who who
Uh,
who showed you the way? Who showed you the light of best? Was it like you saw a bulletin board and said, "Oh, this looks interesting," or a friend said, "Oh, we should join"?
Yeah, I think it was mostly influenced by a friend. Actually, I haven't thought about it in a while, but yeah, it's still a good friend of mine. He's actually also working kind of in product, sorry, and innovation at Jerónimo Martins now. But he was part of this organization, and yeah, I mean, I was already researching and trying to see what was out there. I saw there were like 10, 15 plus different associations. So I was already interested in checking some of them. And I went to
Mhm.
try this one because I had a friend there. I think that was the main.
That was the saying. There's always like a friend or a friend of a friend that takes you
Hmm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So, hey, you. Yes, you. I didn't mean to scare you, but I have something special to share before we dive back in our exciting conversation. Are you ready to improve your product management skills? Then mark your calendar for Productized Conference 2024 from October 2nd to October 4th. It will be epic. Picture this: world class workshops, industry leaders sharing their secrets in an innovative atmosphere here in Lisbon. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. If you follow the podcast, this is the place you want to go. So, while you're enjoying today's episode, grab a ticket and join us. Take advantage of this exclusive opportunity. Head over to www.productize.co and use promo code podcast, all caps, PODCAST, to get 20% off to secure your spot. This discount is on top of early bird, so you can use it until June 28th. And let's meet in Lisbon for Productized 2024. See you there. You had your degree, and then you didn't even apply to aerospace companies, right? You said, I want to go in the tech space.
Yeah. So I already had this clarity that I still wanted to work with technology,
Hmm.
but I didn't want to be an engineer. And I wanted to work with people. And I was also very interested in business. So
Right.
I didn't know back then what product was, but actually when I got the job eventually, I realized, okay, this was already what I was looking for. I was just lacking a word for it, like this
Hmm.
being in the intersection of business, technology, and people.
Which is something that strangely enough, if you go to universities, and I know because you were telling me that you went to your alma mater the other day and you were having this conversation with fellow students,
Yeah.
telling them about product, and they were very very clueless about what is a product manager, and that they didn't even know that there was a role
Hmm.
for this, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, no one teach it, no one taught me that. I knew what a project manager was, but that
Which
seemed
is
too much.
rather intuitive, right? Because
Yeah, and I also had I didn't have an entrepreneurship course, but I did some entrepreneurship activities throughout university. So I knew like lean startup thing and so on. And I had a project management course, so I knew what that was, but I had no clue what product management was. And project management for me seemed too much like uh, closed in a way that's
hmm
like meeting deadlines, waterfall mindset that's very present in at least the course that I had about it. So yeah, I thought like not exactly this is not exactly what I want, but I still want to be involved in technology. So yeah, I was looking for either startups or consulting companies where I could work and explore with different things.
hmm
I applied to some of them. I was rejected by McKinsey, which was my number one option. But
hmm
actually, I think that was the best thing that happened to me. I mean, eventually, I had the opportunity to work at a consulting company, and I realized that consulting is not for me. And also, like, met many people there that became very unhappy eventually. So I'm glad that I didn't get accepted to McKinsey. And I ended up starting in a startup with a position called venture developer, which now looking back, it was already a little bit like product management. Basically, it was to test some business models that they had in a drawer, and yeah, it was quite fun. Ended up killing those products and event or projects in that case, and eventually they said, "Yeah, you're very good at killing projects. Why don't you become a product manager here?" But yeah, I mean, it was basically as those projects came to an end, I was like little bit out of a job within the startup. And yeah, I was exploring other things, and eventually that opportunity came, and it was a nice fit. And I realized then when I started like reading and learning more about product management that it was already what I was looking for and just lacking a name. So yeah, that's how I got
And
into
that was
product.
at landing jobs back then.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So started as a product manager, and then somehow you realized that, oh, how little I know about this.
Hmm.
And eventually you founded Product Weekend as a way to create a community of product management enthusiasts. So tell us more about the motivation behind this
Hmm.
initiative and what it offers to its members, because I understand it's mostly for junior product manager or people that are still trying to find their way.
Yeah, mostly yes. Even though now we're like diversifying, let's say, and trying also other things that we can talk a bit about as well.
hmm
But the start, it was as a junior product manager. I was like reading all these books, like Melissa Perry, Marty Kagan, hearing all the podcasts and so on. And I was still very confused on what I should do next. Like what's the next step, and my context was not like they were describing in the books or in the podcasts. So I started reaching out to people that I knew, reached out also to some others that I didn't know. I think probably around that time, that's when we met, that I probably reached out to you. Maybe that was a bit later after already having the idea to go in
hmm
to build the product weekend. But essentially, as I started talking with more people, first of all, it helped me understand and unlock some of the challenges, like getting other people feedback and perspectives on like, yeah, I don't know exactly for your situation, but I did this in my company with this context, so maybe you can try something like this. It was really helpful. And then on the other hand, I also realized that other people were feeling the same. And this was my point to the not only junior and people that are starting, even people that are more experienced with like
hmm
4, 5, 6 years sometimes in the craft, they're still like confused with all these contradictory words of people saying this is the way or this is how you do strategy, and the other one doing it the other way around. So there's a lot of opinions and very opinionated people, and also a lot of people pretending that they know everything, they have all the answers. And my belief is that no one has all the answers, and it really depends from a context to the other. And sharing these things and being surrounded by people, it really helps. First of all, overcome this imposter syndrome, understand that there's no one right way, and it's not because I'm not doing it like Melissa Perry says that I'm doing it wrong. There's other ways to do things. And also then opening up opportunities, like seeing how things are going, how the industry is evolving, how different things are going in different companies. I think that's also very, very
Right,
powerful.
because
Even
people network with each
yeah,
other when
yeah,
they're
yeah,
in a
yeah.
program.
That's
So tell me something about the model. You guys
mhm,
started in Lisbon, you
yeah,
eventually expanded here in Portugal to Porto and elsewhere, and now you are heavily expanding all across Europe. You've been, to the best of my knowledge, to Barcelona and to
mhm,
Zagreb and so on and so forth. So now in London.
yeah.
Um, what is the model? You organize each one of these product weekends, or can someone apply to be a local organizer and or
Mhm.
create like a local product weekend chapter?
Yeah, that's a interesting question and an interesting topic that we've been thinking about for quite some time. We still don't know exactly what the final format will be, let's say. We're now iterating and trying new things. But essentially, yeah, we are doing it ourselves mostly, taking care of all the logistics, curation,
Hmm.
finding the venue, contacts with the participants, and then traveling to the place to host the event. And by the way, we did it already in Berlin, Barcelona, Zurich, and now
But
London,
Joe,
Belgrade.
are you having people proactively approaching you and say, "Hey, I live in, I don't know, in Paris. I'd like to
Mhm.
do this in Paris." Do you
Yeah.
have like a some
Hmm.
kind of kit, some kind of package that I can take and I can
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it
yeah.
in
We've
Paris?
actually had quite a few people. That's actually why we organized it in Belgrade. It was not one of our top priorities. We're looking more at the biggest tech hubs. That's why we came to Berlin, London, etc. But Belgrade was because we knew someone, Anna Pegan, that she's the founder of the Serbian product community, and she came to an event during Web Summit here in Lisbon, an event that we organized, and she really loved the vibe. She was like, "This is amazing! What you're building, the kind of psychological safety that you have, and we really would like to have it in Belgrade." And yeah, I mean, things emerged from that connection. We did it in partnership with them, and it was a huge success because also we realized that in Belgrade there's not so much going on, so it was a big thing. While like maybe
So
bigger tech hubs, it's a bit
when you
more.
say you did in partnership, is you always have one of the founders to go to the host city,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
either
mean,
you or your
yeah,
co-founder
yeah, yeah. In
Sergio.
that case, it was Sergio that went there.
Sergio, that by the way was in our podcast a few weeks ago.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in that case, Sergio went and it took care. It was mostly like promotion partnership, let's say. So they help share to their community because they also want to be more international.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a huge success, and I've had many people reaching out actually from curious locations. I've had people from New York, from Toronto, from Dubai,
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, like people reaching out saying that it would be cool to have it there. And yeah, I mean, as much as possible, we're trying to explore these opportunities and see if we can make it happen. But yeah, even though we're going fast, I would say, with like new locations opening quite often, we're still like careful to keep the quality and to ensure that we can deliver a great experience. That's our main focus. So we don't want to spread too thin to lose quality, and we're trying to balance this speed of new locations with ensuring quality of the events, which is our top priority. But yeah, now I think we're going to explore two events on the other side of the Atlantic in September, in Toronto and in New York or Boston. So yeah, we've talked with some people there that reached out, were interested, and we're also trying to do it with their support. And yeah, it's essentially that. For the hosting part, it's either me or Sergio going. And now we tried also with local hosts in Porto. Tujal,
Hmm.
that's also one of the hosts of the Product Weekend podcast. He hosted the past edition. He also hosts the next one, but we're still
Hmm.
taking care of all the preparation before the event, the curation, the communications, everything is just taking care of the moderation, basically emceeing during the event. And the next one in June now in Berlin. It's going to be hosted by Lisa, that already attended a few editions as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're also quite excited to see how this one will go because it will be the very first one where neither of us will be present. The one in Porto, I still went there for part of it. So this is going to be the first one that we're letting it fly. And yeah, I mean, it's working well with this model, mostly with people that have already been to Product Week and understand the vibe, understand the culture, understand what we stand for.
Is the one in Berlin in German or in English?
In English, all the events are 100% in English.
So can you explain to people maybe not so familiar with the product weekend format? So it starts
Mhm.
on a Friday, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's Friday evening, so it starts from like 6 p.m. There's some networking, opening session where people get to know each other. Then there's a talk already on Friday and
Hmm.
some dinner and networking. Then on Saturday, it's a full day. So it starts from 9:30 with breakfast. People have all the meals at the venue, and then they stay until after dinner. So then on Saturday there's four talks, one panel discussion about careers in product management, and also a mastermind session, which is something we facilitate that we try to bring everyone's concerns and main topics, and everyone contributes with input. So everyone is a participant in that session, even the speakers, which makes it a very special moment.
Hmm.
And yeah, we've been
So, like you said, people have been very vocal about the psychological safety of the startup weekend format.
product weekend format, but
Sorry, product. Too many weekends in my
you're
head.
still with
I've
the one
been
from the last.
yeah, I exactly. I'm a facilitator of startup weekend. I'm very familiar with the format. That's why I found it so interesting when you first pitched product weekend a few years ago. But beyond uh, management and beyond product management, you've been managing teams. You also host a podcast with Tejal, like you said before. What emerging trends have you put together to build the product weekend format, including the importance of psychological safety, and how has this experience enriched
Hmm.
not only the participants but also your personal and professional life?
Hmm. Yeah. I would say, in terms of trends, we had a very nice timing to get started because it was right after the pandemic,
Yeah,
where like
true.
many events eventually died. I mean, some were in pause and eventually managed to come back to life, but some of them eventually stopped.
Hmm.
So right after the pandemic, there was not many things going on, and people were very eager to meet in person, to connect, to share, to see people face to face. So yeah, we used that moment.
Everyone was very Zoom fatigued,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
exactly. And that influenced a bit the structure that we thought about it. Like, also, the psychological safety is a very key part of the product weekend. And we do not record the sessions, at least not the interactive part of it, to make sure that people can feel comfortable to open up and to share everything and ask everything. And that's what really happens in these discussions, that we go really deep into the challenges that people are facing, and not just superficial level questions that what would you do in this hypothetical thing. It's really concrete and really
Is
um,
there anything that happened? And of course, I don't want you to disclose specific names,
mhm,
locations, or anything like that. But is there any anecdote of something that happened that touched you, that moved you, or that you thought, "Wow, what we're doing here is quite deep."
mhm. um, There's a few things. It's actually something that I'm sad that I'm not tracking more structuredly somehow. But I have some anecdotal evidence of real impact that we had, and we've seen many people that, like, Actually, just today I saw something, a new podcast emerging from two people that we introduced.
Hmm.
But many things like this have happened in the past, like people that were hired after attending a product weekend that came as a participant, and then a speaker hired them. We've had this at least two or three times that I know of. But yeah, by the way, if you're listening and if you've been to a product weekend and you've had any of these things, feel free to reach out. I'm always very happy to hear these stories. But yeah, people being hired, people that became friends and really close friends.
Yeah.
We've had people that, I mean, now they're meeting pretty much every week, that became friends. Actually, the most extreme story is someone that eventually became friends and now they're partners and they're living together. So it was
What about
a very
career progression? Any evidence that product weekend is helping people? I've career progression is a very loaded thing,
yeah,
right? I know for a fact people that have been to product weekends that I was friends or just tracking, and they have a career progress in the sense that now they have jumped into better jobs.
yeah, yeah.
And of course, there's always correlation versus causation. It's
Hmm.
hard to say whether this comes from product weekend
Exactly.
or from going to productized conference or for any
Hmm.
reading a podcast or maybe just the sheer accumulation of all that.
Yeah.
um, but still, what I mean about product progression, I mean product progression inside the company where you are,
Hmm.
making you a better product manager or healing some of those diseases,
Yeah.
relationship wise, with your boss, with your head of product, whatever it is,
Hmm.
colleagues,
Yeah.
peers.
I mean, yeah, I'm quite confident that it happens. I have just a couple stories of people that said, "Yeah, I came to Product Weekend and I understood that what I was doing was just project management, and we've had been having these conversations, and we're managing to make some changes." That thing that you mentioned, jumping to better positions within the company or even outside the company, also have happened, and I know people that told me that Product Weekend helped them understand that they could be doing something more and something better. So yeah, I'm pretty sure and pretty confident that we're adding that value. I'm just not sure yet how to measure it concretely.
Hmm.
But I see it happening from this anecdotal evidence and the fact that we are going to the events and we stay in touch with these people. It really, it makes me feel really fulfilled that we're delivering something that has a real impact that people benefit from. Even people like, even if it's not like a new thing, like just getting salary increases, understanding like what's the market like, how can you approach it. Because in the product weekend, people have these really honest conversations in people
Hmm.
with different seniority levels, like both from the people that are managing and are coming as speakers. They also stay for the most of the event, at least, or sometimes for the whole event, and they also share. They also ask questions. They also share the perspective of someone that's hiring or someone that's managing, and how can you be more valuable for me as a leader. And that exchange really helps both leaders becoming better leaders and
Hmm.
individual contributors eventually growing in their careers and having more impact.
All right. So I see lots of venues of growth and improvement for product weekend, to tracking, etc. But we also, as we look to the future, we also are working together on this joint program called the Product Weekend Retreat,
Hmm.
which is also a celebration, and it's an opportunity for people that have been through the Product Weekend programs to get together over the weekend and you know do a little bit more. So can you tell us a little bit what is the Product Weekend Retreat and
Yeah.
why is
Hmm.
this format needed?
Yeah. Yeah, I can even tell you a little bit of the origin story, and that's how Sergio and I
Yeah.
joined forces. That he had this retreats business, and I think he talked about it in the other episode that
Hmm.
you had
A
with
little
him.
bit.
So yeah, this retreats business for young professionals in general. I had the product weekend, very focused on junior to mid-level PMs, but from his side, he was struggling to find like a clear niche on how to deliver that value
Yeah.
of intimate connection on a deeper level. And from the product weekend side, I already had the feedback from speakers, from people I was meeting with, like higher positions, that they would appreciate a space more exclusive for leaders to share and to discuss leadership challenges specifically. Um, and these leadership challenges, some of them can be also related to personal life, because the reason why Product Weekend started was a lot because of this imposter syndrome and feeling lonely as a PM, individual contributor. But this feeling is aggravated if you're a leader, because now you have even more pressure, and you still don't know everything, and you still don't have all the answers. But
Yeah.
while you don't have all the answers, you need to project confidence to your teams, and at the same time lead them and motivate them. And you also need to project confidence to your stakeholders and say, we got this, we know where we're going, and you can trust that we're getting there. And you cannot really open up with anyone in the company. So this product leaders retreat or product weekend retreat, we're making sure that there's this safe space for leaders to share their pains, to talk with each other, to brainstorm also what the solutions. And we want to make sure that they come out of the retreat with a clear action plan forward. So we're working also with you, with Productized, and also with Radhika. That's going to be a speaker at Productized, to create this immersive experience where they will be able to work on their radical product vision for their products,
Hmm.
but also do a self assessment on where they're lacking, what the weak spots, what the things that they're not delivering as well, and come up with a clear action plan that will then follow up with a coaching call after the retreat. Actually, two calls after the retreat, one like 2 weeks, another one 6 weeks after the retreat, so that we can actually make sure and hold them accountable for delivering on those actions that they identified.
Right. So
So yeah,
that's there's a continuous
exactly. We want
tracking
to.
of
It starts before
progress.
the retreat with like
Hmm.
assessment and understanding, some bit of reflection. Then during the retreat, we're doing something different this year. Compared, this is the second edition, but it's going to be different from the first one. That we're
Hmm.
creating this immersive experience, as you well know. That people come on Wednesday, they meet just the 20 people that are going to be participants of the retreat. They get to know each other. They get to know each other's goals and objectives for the event. Then they participate in the leadership day with like 60 or 80 more product leaders. So they
That's
have the
the
opportunity
leadership
to
that we're
have
having
a,
at Productized this year.
yeah. And then
Okay.
after that, they participate in the conference. And this is really an enhanced conference experience, that they will have access to some exclusive moments like the
Hmm.
speakers dinner and yeah, the leaders day, as I was mentioning. But they will also be able to help each other in the networking and connecting with the most relevant people that are in the conference, so they can really take the most from the conference. And then after the conference on Saturday, it's basically like debriefing and taking all the learnings and turning them into a clear action plan for their life. So that's the vision for it.
All right. So looking at this vision of yours, not just specifically for the retreat, but for the entire product weekend ecosystem,
Mhm.
where do you see the field uh, of product management going, crossing the future of product weekend? Are there specific trends or innovations that are particularly excited, and how do you see the this crossing the your growth plan for product
Mhm.
weekend for the next year or so?
Yeah, there's a few things I'm quite excited about, especially for the fact of being involved with them, which is first of all the importance of community. I think it's becoming more and more relevant way to connect people, even for companies as a marketing opportunity to reach relevant audiences.
Hmm.
But people value more, like especially with more and more AI and more robots, people want real people, and people want to connect with each other and have these real
Right.
relationships and
Authenticity.
connections. Sorry. Yeah,
Authenticity.
authenticity, yeah, for sure. And like meeting real people is something that people value a lot, and I think it's increasing more and more. The other thing, quite related to this, is the psychological safety, that it's emerging more and more as a topic that's important to address. And we believe that it's really the baseline or the groundwork, the foundation for any meaningful product work. Without it, any perfectly fine framework will eventually fail. If you cannot open up, if you cannot voice your concerns, your challenges, if you don't feel even motivated or happy with the work that you're doing, you're not going to deliver the best work.
Hmm.
So we're developing this framework to help teams and people build more psychological safe environments
Hmm.
for their work. And we're quite excited that we're delivering it now in some companies. Actually, this weekend here in London, I'm going to present it publicly for the first time. So quite excited
Wow.
to.
Can you unveil a little bit?
Yeah.
So, just sorry, I don't want to, you know, to showcase what you're going to
Mhm.
present in a few hours or so. But what is how can you tell a psychological safe company from a company that that has
Mhm.
not progressed so much in that
Yeah.
space, or if you will, a psychological safety maturity scale or something like that?
Yeah, that's something we want to structure a bit more, like an assessment, a clear assessment that people can do.
Hmm.
But yeah, first of all, I would say it's not only about the company, like the company culture and so on
Right, right.
influences, but
Culture,
it's a lot
teams.
about the team level, on the team
Yes,
level. And just having a different team member joining or leaving, it can change the whole dynamic. So it's really important
absolutely.
to focus on the unitary element of teams. And I think what we're trying to do with this framework is giving the tools. So basically, we have these five as topics or pillars that people can think about independently. So it's easier to assess on which of them are we failing or on which of them we are excelling. And then based on this, you'll be able to see where you can work. And another very important thing is that it's not a checkbox or a end goal. It's like
Mm.
it's something that's continuous. Like you're always, it's a continuous work in the sense that you don't achieve psychological safety and it's a check and now you can move on with your life and do other things. It's like a continuous work that you need to
Can
work.
always create a safe framework for psychological safety.
We want to
The
have
word
like,
is already there.
yeah, we want to have people thinking about these things on a regular basis. That's why a framework helps, to have like words to talk about it. um, and and yeah, I mean, you you need to constantly be mindful about it, because it's very easy to get lost. If you have like a toxic member in your team, it can be very easily damage the whole
Oh yeah,
environment
oh
and
yeah.
culture.
I've been there.
So that's a very important thing to keep in mind, for instance, to like weed out the ones that are not
Yeah, but that without, which is a very interesting conversation we're having right now, um, is it's a two-way street, right? Because that's just the way I see it, right? The weeding out,
Mhm,
great teams weed out very effectively, right? Because if they're great, then a weed comes in. They say, "What the fuck is this guy doing here?" So they're very effective at
mhm.
weeding people that do not have the culture, the feet.
Yeah.
But like you said, the thing is, if this weed gets in and then it starts to contaminate, then upper management needs to be very, needs to be very vocal about it and say,
Mhm, mhm.
there's no place for
Yeah.
weeds here.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and what I've seen is, very rarely our teams has matured that they weed automatically. So the weed comes in, and then upper management is not effective enough or fast enough to recognize that this weed is spreading like, a plague, like
Hmm.
a virus, and is going to destroy a lot of the good people inside. And by the time they realize, it's
It's
usually
already too
too
late.
late. It's
Hmm.
usually too late, right? When they finally, oh, fuck, what's going on? Everyone is quitting. The
Hmm.
best guys are leaving the team. What's going on?
Yeah,
And right, because they have this very iceberg view
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
company. They only see the
The
top
top.
of the top, and they don't listen to the conversations in the
Hmm.
corridors.
Yeah, I
A
think.
very complex topic here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 100%. And we're not oversimplifying or saying that it's easy. It's definitely not easy, and it's a constant thing that needs to be worked on. Our idea and the reason why we creating this framework is to give a vocabulary for people to use and to address these
Mm.
topics, to be able to
To
see
create
what's wrong.
lexicon. Okay.
Exactly. To allow people to see and easily spot when things are going bad before they turn into a full fledged burn,
Right.
like burning the whole
That's super
building.
interesting.
So, yeah, I mean,
Are you
I can
going to start to give trainings for companies on this specific topic?
yeah, we're actually starting already now in June. We're
Mm-hmm.
delivering for a company, for a product management team,
Mm-hmm.
in a unicorn here in Portugal. And yeah, we're happy if this topic resonates. We're available.
Including management or management profiles of the team joining that session?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Product management team. So like from director of product management to individual product managers. It's going to be an interesting one. Going to be the first one in this format. But yeah, we're very much interested in doing it more, not only to help more and more companies have this lexicon and be able to address it early on, but also to be able to improve it even further and make sure that it's actually delivering the value that we aim to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if anyone listening, if the topic resonates, feel free to reach out. We're very happy to go in more depth and to design something also matching the team. It can be on a team level or it can be on a leadership level. It depends. We can structure it differently. But yeah, I mean,
All right.
I can also just give a brief overview. Essentially, there's 5 steps, let's say, which are not necessarily in this direction. So you can assess each of them independently, but it's essentially starting with reframing. So reframe decisions as bets and reframing insights as assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
That's accounting for uncertainty, essentially. Then accept, and it's essentially creating a safe to fail environment. Then own, and that's part of fostering individual ownership. And it has mainly 2 components. That part, it's like self awareness, self knowledge, let's say, developing that self knowledge, and also communicating this self knowledge, these strengths and boundaries to the team.
Mm-hmm.
Then after owning, it's committing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
committing to duty to integrity. So making sure that people are um, aligned on a common vision and that they don't hold key information for their own personal gain, for instance, and making sure that they're rowing in the same direction. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, humanizing. So that's part of leadership. It's building a human leadership, and there's 2 aspects to it, mostly vulnerability and accountability. And we want to help people understand within these 5 pillars where they're lacking, where they're the strongest, and have specific actions that they can implement to improve. It's not like doing the checkbox, as I said before. It's like, how can we improve in all these things with
Right.
specific
Keep
practices?
checking. Keep checking. Keep tracking.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
Okay. So, um, João, you have a strong passion for continuous learning and development. I think your entire life. That's the testimony of what you just said since the beginning when you were a kid and watching all this YouTube channels. So, how do you keep yourself informed and motivated? What's your next? What's next for your learning journey?
Mm-hmm. Um, Actually, one thing we were talking about the trends, and besides these 2 that I mentioned, the community and the psychological safety, I would
Mm-hmm.
also highlight no code and AI, and I think they are really important for product management for the product
Hmm.
management field, because it's allowing more and more people to build products. So I think more and more people will become product managers. You don't need to be to have that title in a company to be a product manager. You can just be someone at your home paying like 50 euros in online tools and building products that can deliver real value to people. So I think
Yeah, for
that's
sure, product builders, right?
yeah, yeah,
New product builders coming over because of AI and no code, and
yeah.
I see that myself.
Yeah, I think that's a very important trend, and I think that's also it's also one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about being in this space at this moment, because I think it's important to educate more and more people on this thinking of like not jumping to solutions, thinking about problems and solving real problems for real people. That's something that I think it's very important for more people to learn about. But yeah, answering your question,
So
what's next?
let's say AI and no code. Are you learning about it?
Yeah, we're actively using them for Product Weekend. So if you ever applied or checked our website, it's built
Hmm.
in a no code platform. We also have a few automations built using no code and AI. We're also using some things for producing content, for optimizing some things like with podcast descriptions, whatever. There's a bunch of things we're playing around with. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely learning and trying to apply as much as possible while making sure that we keep the authenticity. I think that's something very important. And as we said before, that people really value more and more uh,
Hmm.
authenticity and being real people behind and not just machines. I think it's really important. But we're trying to combine them with our workflows to make sure that we can be as efficient as possible.
Any recommendations? People that someone wants to create a product. Where should they start? What
Mhm.
should they learn?
Um,
I mean, you're using software, right?
Yeah, I'm using Software and Airtable. I'm really fan of the combination. They are very easy to use and quite powerful. Not super customizable. Like if you want something with a very specific design or with very specific flows, it may be a bit challenging. But I would say those two are very easy to start with.
Hmm.
Then, yeah, for automations, Airtable also has automations, but I'd say Zapier, it's a quite strong one. Make is also a possibility, even though it's not connected with as many things as Zapier. And yeah, I think like just trying it out. I've also played
Trying
around
it out
with Bubble. Bubble is more customizable than Software, a
hmm
bit harder to
to
like
learn.
learning curve is a bit higher.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would say like just trying it out,
Get your hands dirty.
testing. Yeah, get the subscription for ChatGPT, or I mean, there's many others not by now that you can play with.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I actually follow a newsletter. Forgot the name,
That's
but
fine. We can put it on the
mhm,
show descriptions later.
yeah, yeah,
All right, Joan. Look, it's been incredibly insightful to hear your story and thoughts on product management, innovation. Of course, we talk almost on a weekly basis, but this is actually the first time we do the a recording of
yeah.
one of our conversations, and still, I always get to learn a little bit more about you, which is surprising in many ways. How can
Awesome.
those interested in connecting with you or participating in product we can get
Mhm.
involved?
Yeah. Yeah, the easiest way is just to connect or follow on LinkedIn, João Moita on LinkedIn, or go to the Product Weekend website, which is theproductweekend.com. And there you can find everything, all the events. You can find also the podcast. You can also subscribe to get some email notifications from time to time with new opportunities, roughly once a month, sometimes not even once a month. We promised not to be very annoying, but just send you the juicy things. So yeah, going to the website is the easiest way, and feel free to drop me a text if you're interested in any of these things that I talked about. I'd be very happy to dive deeper. And
And expanding, if you are in a city that hasn't
yeah,
been touched by product weekend yet, then this might be a good opportunity to reach out
For
to
sure.
João.
Yeah.
João, thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us
Yeah.
today. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with the leaders shaping the world in product. For our listeners as well, I hope that I didn't scare you too much with this intro that we now have on the podcast, but take the chance to dive deeper into product topics with over 25 speakers and trainers at Productized Conference 2024. It's happening in Lisbon, October 2, 3, and 4. And early birds are still available at www.productized.co. See you there.
And if you're a leader, I guess you'll enjoy the product retreat package.
You should also join the product retreat.
Yeah.
See you there, guys.
Awesome.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Thanks, João.
Bye-bye.